Well, this is my second day of installing my turbo with the help of my good friend Justin McCaffrey. He had to run back to work, but here we are. We've made some progress. Just sort of everything is kind of dry fit. Some of the stuff is snugged down. There's always a concern we'll have to take it all off again because I had to do it about 4 or 5 times. Clocking the turbo is interesting. Trying to get all the angles right. There's some issues with that. Getting the intercooler piping fit just right, and of course that depends on the clocking of the turbo. The turbo clocking depends on how the intercooler piping fits and everything. But intake down to air temperature sensor down to the bottom pipe. I think that's backwards actually, but seems to fit and work. So I'll go look and see if there's instructions to see if like the intake charge, how that works, if it's directional. I'm kind of guessing it doesn't really matter which way it goes through the intercooler, up or down. But basically it's coming out of the turbo. I guess it's coming out of the turbo into the top pipe, down and out the bottom into the intake. So I guess that seems right. I'm not sure. Anyway, so top pipe just kind of comes up out of the turbo. The clocking, there's a V-band flange here that holds this half of the housing, the inducer housing, onto the turbine, and you can basically just loosen that up and the whole thing will spin. There's 2 things to look out for: the position of your speed sensor here, and the position of these things here, your blow-off valve controller and your boost controller solenoid. The other thing to note is the wastegate, which is important. The wastegate's adjustable in steps according to the bolt hole pattern on the back of the housing here. There's 3 bolts, one there, and one there. And you see that housing, there's holes about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way around it. So this bracket right here that holds your wastegate can move a hole at a time. The reason it would have to move is to turn, basically because this extruder housing here is fixed. It's bolted to your manifold, so it can't move. But the midsection can move relative to that, and this front housing can move relative to the midsection. The problem is that the wastegate itself can't really move. The wastegate's part of the extruder housing down here, and the shaft going through here doesn't have a lot of play really. The length of this rod determines where you're allowed to put this wastegate, and the wastegate, although the shaft moves in and out, it's not supposed to be at an angle when it does that, either up or down or left or right. And of course, if you shift the wastegate left and right, that's gonna basically the bracket, it's gonna angle this way. But then when you tighten down that bracket, the wastegate is gonna stay flush, but the shaft will be offset. So what that's gonna do is the shaft will be angled off this way, and the wastegate will be facing flush with the bracket here. So basically, you want to keep this bracket right here, this and this, at a 90-degree angle. And I think there's a certain amount of tolerance to that, and they tell you that in the EFR PDF from Borg Warner. So that was interesting. Also, the cooling lines are run. What I did was I took a line here from the water outlet housing, which is where the water comes out of the block, and ran it over to the inside here, right here, this blue fitting you can see here. It's in the top of the 2 bolts. There's two water outlets, and it's in the top, so the water's going to come. Oops, let's see, got to refocus. The water's going to come in that top, in the top over here. It's going to flow down, and then there's 2 more. Move this out of the way. There's 2 more water fittings over here, and it's going to go out the bottom. And hopefully that will keep it as full of water at all times as it can be. And the oil is kind of the same thing. There's an oil fitting got black here. This is the supply, the oil supply line. And then down on the bottom, you can kind of see back in there, that little black fitting there. That's the oil drain. Let me see if I can shove the phone down in there. Not sure if I can get it down in there low enough. Anyway, that's the oil drain right there, that little black hose line. That should be at the bottom, and there's a tolerance for how much that has to be vertical. So when you're looking here, oops, come on, refocus. Not sure why the camera won't focus anymore. But anyway, it won't focus, so I'll try to get in there and just keep it focused. But basically, you see the the inlet here. This is pretty much vertical, flat. And you see how it's not right at the top. Like, here's the turbo, and so this would be straight up and down, which would be perfect. What it is it's canted just a little bit, so it's actually right here, and that's a maximum of 20 degrees. Now, I canted mine for a couple of different reasons. One was to sort of make the best of the oil and the water, to keep them as high as possible for the inlets and low as possible for the outlets. Also, it allows a little bit more clearance on the fitting down there. I think you're supposed to have a adapter plate, which didn't come with the kit, and it's a little weird that the outlet hole is threaded, and it's threaded with roughly the thread size of the little adapter they give you, the 10AN adapter. So I Teflon taped that and threaded it in. If that leaks, I'm going to have to get a plate and a gasket, and I'm going to have to get some nuts, some kind of bolt, and redo that fitting on the bottom there for the drain. But the one that I've seen online for this turbo is a 45. So with that 45 plus the 45 of the fitting, that would give me 90 degrees, which may or may not be good, because I know they really make a big deal about draining the oil, not having any restrictions. So a 45 is all I'm really comfortable running for that for now. So if it doesn't leak, I'd be happier with that than with a 90 degree, where the oil's just going to kind of run down, hit the 90, and have to go sideways. I'd rather it stay, pretty much as vertical as possible. So that's that so far. I did also miscalculate something else, which was my exhaust system when I made it. I made it to the specs of the original exhaust. I'm going to have to go under the car so you can see that. Let's go down here. I made it to the original specs. This is the 3-inch exhaust. You can see it's separated back there. It comes all the way up to here, where this is where a race header would terminate, right here. And a lot of guys say you have to run a test pipe, and I was like, no, this thing right here is long enough. It looks like a test pipe or whatever. It'll take up a test pipe space, but when you go to run it, it's not long enough. I know you guys can't really see a lot of this, but this is the turbine outlet. So, well, this is kind of upside down. Let's see if I can get it right side up. Oh, there's not a lot of room down here, but that's the outlet, the drain. Up behind that is the manifold, and you can see my wiring harness is actually this here. So the wiring harness comes out of the firewall. I have it coming straight down to, there's a support bar that runs, a rigidity bar that runs across the car there. It's just below the steering rack, and I brought it, down a little bit to tie it to that bar. It had to come up over this heat shield here. Couldn't go under the shield here, so brought it down the bar and just kind of zip tied it up. And then the same thing on the other side, and then it kind of goes up right across there. You can kind of see a little bit through there. Anyway, it's just basically right up identical on the other side, and then from there you'll see it goes straight into the motor. So basically it's going to go, it looks just like this side right here on the other side. So it's kind of above, down, and then it goes kind of above and then straight over to the motor. So if you get it that far, you'll have done the same thing I did on that. Now, this oil outlet hose here is basically touching the downpipe, and there's not a lot of play. There's nowhere for it to really go, so I'm going to have to heat wrap that and try my best to tuck it out of the way for what I can do with it. But when you sort of seat the pipe here up against this, it's pretty much where it goes, and run it back, it goes to right here, and that leaves about a foot. Oops, I've just zoomed in, sorry guys, I apologize. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get both of these at the same time, but there's about a foot of gap there. So I think I'm going to have to find a test pipe, or I'm going to have to figure something out on that, and that sucks. So anyway, I have to put the axles back in. You know, they're still out. Of course, there's no fluid. I haven't connected up any of the suspension, and so all that has to be done. Let me get out of here. And sorry about the crappy video, but it's mainly for me anyway, and anybody else who's doing this. So still have to, you know, basically do all that, connect all that stuff up, sway bar, the upper two spindle mount bolts when you go on brakes have to go back together. I got to clean up the calipers. Obviously the wheels and everything have to go back on. Axles, there's a metal axle has to be mounted, you know, some stuff like that. Radiator and radiator hoses still have to go on and be, you know, installed and connected up. Headlights, bumper, hood, you know, there's actually all the vacuum lines. Well, not all of them, I have some of them. My brake booster line, which is here, have that. Let me see if I can, I don't know why this thing won't autofocus.